Okay, so Michal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. So this podcast is called the Sirocco Sessions. So what we do is we try to speak to people in the industry or in the field of CRM or connected fields, I guess, to see how you look at the different areas of that yourself, your experience, your expertise, and specifically in your case for Expo City, how you're doing it there. But I thought we could start with yourself, like I know you, but our audience might not. So know like how you got to where you are, like what's your background story, I guess, into where you are in your role today.
Yeah, of course, Nick. So once again, thanks for inviting me on. So I am currently the Director of Digital CX at Expo City Dubai. You might hear my Australian accent, I'm originally from Sydney, Australia, where I grew up. Very lucky to have grown up in Australia, nature and fantastic upbringing. So yeah, very grateful for that. And most of my time in Australia was spent, with a very fortunate sort of family and very lucky to kind of study everything down there and then starting my career. And, my first sort of job, if you like, was in marketing, actually. It was dropping flyers for real estate agents around the neighborhood and a paper route as well, like many young kids at the time. So I stayed in Sydney most of my life. My career progression sort of happened mostly there. And I also ended up sort of traveling the world and studying and living in various countries, various cities, Tokyo and London. And ended up here in Dubai about 11 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a long time ago now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And look, my career started, I think, in service industry most of all. Like we were in the hospitality sector most of my early years. Probably spent about 10 years there. My first real job was working in restaurants and bars and hotels and managing them. And that's where I got my interest, I think, in people, human behavior. And like many of us say at the time or said at the time, it's, you often see the worst of humanity when you're working in hospitality. But it really piqued my interest, the way that people reacted to triggers, the way that people reacted to each other, the relationships, and also how teams came together. So that was my grounding, and I always had technology as a hobby, let's say. My father, I remember my first computer, he bought my first computer when I was 11. It was a Macintosh LC2 classic. Prior to that, I'd had sort of hand-me-downs and computers being offered to us, and I was very lucky. And I think from then, it was just all about the interface, and it was all about how I could create, how I could craft. And I think, in parallel to the hospitality, I was always studying on the side marketing strategy, and I was always studying technology. And at one point, I just wanted to cross over. So I crossed over more into sort of user experience. And I guess that's where I really found a place. And I found my passion in creating these sort of experiences for people digitally. And it was then that I studied a bit more and worked in various consulting firms, one in London. And a little while later, I ended up getting a fantastic role here in Dubai, where I was working with Emirates Airlines on behalf of a consulting firm called Tiger Spike, now Concentrics. And we were working on all the consumer-facing products for Emirates Airlines at the time. So the application that you might use to book flights, and the website, of course, working closely with the corporate communications team and the strategy teams there. That was a fantastic time here in the early years of my time in Dubai. And through that and various other projects, I was able to explore more the strategy around wider customer experience and the role that technology plays in the customer experience. So that took me to various places around the world, still in the service industry at the time, still consulting and providing that consultation. So I was fortunate to go to sort of Singapore to work on an innovation framework for a large firm there, and even back here working for the Museum of the Future before it had started, to try and predict where there might be problems and challenges in the experience, and how technology and also operations and organizationally we could address those before they became problems or pinch points, and many other smaller pieces. So that kind of brings me right up to where I am today, because it was at a point where I felt I really wanted to own and drive something on the client side rather than consulting, which, as you are aware, you often unable to take ownership. So I managed to land a fantastic role at a fantastic organization, which is Expo City Dubai. So that sort of brings us up to where we are today.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like you had a very good trajectory into where you are now. I think because a lot of people, if you've only worked on the consulting side or only in-house, so to speak, as a client, it's hard to sometimes see the other side of the coin, so to speak. And I think especially working in a large organization where you're probably asked to put together a business case or something, or present why we should do A instead of B. Like having worked as a consultant, that's your bread and butter, like you're comfortable in doing in that, I guess, which some people often in our projects, we often have to help stakeholders on the inside, so to speak. Okay, this is how we would put this forward to, whoever the decision makers are, and help with that. But I've noticed since working with you for the past year and a half, I think it is now, that is perfect for me as well, because you know what I'm trying to achieve, and we know how we can help each other. So it's a very easy kind of relationship for me. Whereas sometimes people who maybe don't have a consulting experience or background, they don't really maybe always see the same picture that we do, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like the skills that you can gain either side will benefit the other side.
Sure.
I've been fortunate to be on one side and now on the other, and the skills I gained in the consulting are super valuable to internally support departments. And I do think that has helped. But on the other side, I think it's also challenging to be in a larger organization when and be in it for the long haul. So my desire has become, in some ways, a challenge. But I'm always up for a challenge, and I love this challenge at this point. So I'm very happy.
Oh, sure, that makes sense. And could you tell us a little bit about what is Expo City? Because I know of Expo City since Expo, and when that big event, or longer than an event, when that 6 months was. That was exciting. And then I know it kind of transformed into Expo City over a bit of time. But could you just give us a brief rundown of what Expo City is and does? Yeah,
absolutely. The listeners may or may not understand or know the history. So I'll start back at where you were talking, which was the mega event. So a World Expo exists. There's one currently at the moment in Osaka. And UAE was fortunate and I'm sure bid very well and very hard to win Expo 2020, the mega event, which is a 6-month long event filled with fantastic exhibitions from all over the world, filled with events, filled with a lot of knowledge sharing, education, cultural exchange, and it's a really interesting mega event. And while I wasn't part of that team, I did attend as a visitor and have very fond memories of it. So Expo as the mega event sat on a piece of land, 3.5 square kilometers, and was built from desert. And purpose built for the event, but always built with future beyond event. Of course, sustainability in mind, one of the key pillars for every organization. But in particular for Expo, it was a pillar of the event and a pillar going forward. The piece of land is located sort of in between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, right? And it's very conveniently located. And you've got 4 international airports sort of within reach from Abu Dhabi all the way through to Sharjah. So it's quite an interesting location. Equally, you've got Jebel Ali Port. And you have, of course, Al Maktoum Airport, which you might know of, which is set to be one of the largest operational airports in the world. I think it was a $35 billion US dollar investment for their expansion. So that's being built right next door, literally next door. And this is all part of Dubai's Vision 2041, I believe, Urban Development 2041. Sorry, Urban Master Plan, of which Expo has a key role. And so what has happened is we have been transitioning from a mega event to a city. When we say city, it effectively is an operating city on its own within wider Dubai. It was last year that we announced the master plan for what that city will become, and we're kind of christened with the name, with the title to be the new center of Dubai's future. And that's because there is an expansion of Dubai towards the south where we are, towards the airport. And the airport itself will sort of generate over 1 million opportunities for residential and business. So we play a fairly important piece of that puzzle in that area. Equally, we have Dubai Exhibition Centre right next to us, which, as you know, hosts, doesn't now, but back in downtown hosts the likes of GITEX and so on and so forth. And as you know, it's expanding in downtown, and it's a bit more difficult to host those events. And so in future, Expo will host, on behalf of DEC, Dubai Exhibition Centre, the likes of the GITEXs and events as such. So we have a very interesting future. Within that master plan, just to sort of summarize, we have abundance of residential opportunities, so villas, townhouses, apartment blocks, which are all, if not being developed now, on the plans to be developed. It's funny because it feels like a bit of a construction site at times, as you know, you've been out there a few times. And so it is difficult to manage people's expectations who are attending or want to come and visit for the various reasons, because we do still have events, some exhibitions, and some attractions. Equally, we are a free zone. So a tax-free zone, which is obviously helping businesses set up, establish themselves, large and small businesses, freelancers, all the way up to large enterprise, with tax benefits, like many of the free zones. And so we exist as a free zone too. So all of this combined, we're effectively building a city that should host around 35,000 residents, about 40,000 commercial employees in the near future over phases. So yeah, it's a very, very unique situation. I've spoken to many people about whether they were at an expo in their city or know of one, or at an Olympics in their city or know of one. And it's very interesting to sort of hear each story about what happened with that space. And we are in it right now, trying to transition into something new. So in some ways it has been done before, but in many ways it's extremely unique for all the reasons that I've just shared, for everything that is around us. So really fascinating days. Every day is something new. Yeah. And challenges.
It would be exciting to see, because like you said, I've been to Expo since the mega event, but also now working with Expo City. And you're walking around, and it's, at the moment at least, for me, it's more like okay, here's some offices, here's some people working, but it will be exciting to see it as a city with, when there's people everywhere, when there's people on the streets, in all the restaurants, and when it's busy. It will give a very different, I've seen all the renders and they look great, but to actually see the actual people will be exciting. But I also know you do cool things with the urban lab and very futuristic kind of bleeding edge stuff as well. So it's it's a cool mix. And you have been part of leading the marketing function, I guess, the marketing department or marketing function of Expo City kind of centrally. So how does that work? How do you service the other parts of the organization? Because they do, I guess, I know from experience that before they were doing some pieces there, you were doing some pieces. You seem to have been on a bit of a mission of kind of consolidating and centralizing some of that. But how do you fit into that?
Right. Yeah. Well, with my my marketing colleagues, we are in the marketing department as a shared service, like most organizations. The organization has, as the transition has occurred, needed to change shape in many ways. And I think will continue to change shape, rightly so. It needs to find where the value propositions lie, where the best operating models are, how best to organize. But the consistent has been several departments, including ours, that keep the thread going from the history to the future and keep, as best we can, the engine room moving because there is a lot of uncertainty. And so as departments need support, as business units need support in their ventures, trying to find a new value proposition, trying to find their fit, or trying to find or amplify the legacy of Expo 2020, they need support. And that's what we are there for. We are there to exist to ensure their infrastructure is right, ensure that they're thinking through what it is that they are trying to accomplish from both marketing objectives but experience objectives too, as well as business objectives. In the end, is it going to create value? And so a lot of, I guess, the historical consulting work that I had done comes to the fore in this space, where we think through the objectives and the outcomes first, and then we think through the assumptions being made to reach those outcomes, and we think through which audiences we are needing to target, or why we exist, and who we are doing this for to serve. That's a challenge because we are all pressured, wanting to accomplish something, wanting to striving for some sort of greatness, because the greatness of the event itself is still there, it still exists, and it needs to exist in the culture of the organization, and it keeps us going. Because, like I said, I wasn't there through the event, but I certainly feel the power of the event with the people that we work with and what it did and the impact it made. And we want to keep that because you want to use that energy to try and direct it in the areas to make those business units a success, and also reputationally across the whole brand itself a success and understood. And that's another challenge, is how do we tell that story? How do we reinforce that message upon the experience? We always sort of say, at least in my team, we talk about marketing setting the promise and digital experience or customer experience delivering on it. And those two things need to be in lockstep.
Sure.
So the work we do is very much supportive. And of course, as you know, the challenges are very much around how do we unify some of this so that it doesn't feel like it's different if somebody's experiencing across the organization. And that's not uncommon for many organizations either. So it's not like it's unsolvable.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Because I think part of why this maybe your challenge is a little bit unique to many other organizations is that Expo City has so many touch points of very different types of touch points. You have one where I might take my son to a kids event at the Terra Pavilion, for example, or kids lab event or a summer camp there. And then I might come as a corporate visitor to the exhibition center. And then I might set up my office. So it's like, and the same people might be across some of those touch points.
Yeah.
And I guess to unify them and make them useful because it's useful information if I'm in the process of signing a lease agreement that, I visited the Terra Pavilion, last weekend. So he is here, kind of, this person is in touch with the city.
Right.
Maybe on a very different touch point, but it's still useful information. And I guess to close that loop and make that information make its way kind of all the way back to someone who is in a conversation with someone, it's maybe a little bit different than if you run a a business or an organization that's more like one industry, and basically all the people you have touch points with are more similar, and the segmentations and the personas are more similar. You must have, I don't know, endless personas that come.
So that's spot on.
Yeah. So how do you? I know you're working with your customer data platforms, trying stitching things together, and that. But that must be a somewhat unique challenge, or I mean, not unique, maybe totally, but quite a different challenge.
Yeah, it is. As we are trying to define the various component parts clearly within, and the detail within those component parts. So let's say the residential offerings, it's very clear what they are and what they will become. The free zone and business offerings, it's very clear what that is and what it becomes. There's office space for lease, and there's licensing and business support and business services. So those are quite clear. And the audiences and the communities that we are speaking to and want to engage are quite established as audiences. Visitation for events is unique based on interest, but it's not new, right? People coming buying tickets, people coming registering for events, people coming visiting unregistered. It's not uncommon, these things. But to your point, if the person has visited the event, but 2 days before have inquired for real estate, but before that have perhaps been in a business or a company, maybe not them, but their colleague has made an inquiry. How can we piece this together? Is this something we want to piece together? And for what gain for the end user? It's very difficult because there is probably n number of, as you say, personas out there and types of interests and behaviors that we don't yet understand either, because we're still building the things. So we're still trying. What is the reaction when we put this in the market? What is the unmet need? What haven't we spoken about that would be helpful for that person? And so are we able to gather all of this? Are we able to stitch it together? And are we able to model based on a group of people so that we can build some intelligence and then look for others and try and address others? And that is the day-to-day work that we're trying to focus on.
Well, yeah, I understand that. In your role and in what you see, what is the kind of, if you talk technology for a minute, the tech stack, so to speak, that you look after? I know you see a lot of the technologies being used specific to your function, but to service the whole organization. So I know CRM, your when Microsoft Dynamics is your CRM platform that the whole organization is using. I know you use Telium, I think, for your CDP.
That's right, yeah.
And then now you've been piloting this WhatsApp initiative for 6 months now, maybe?
That's it, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about WhatsApp, because it's interesting to me how in this region, I've never seen a channel like WhatsApp anywhere else in the world. In the UAE, in the GCC, WhatsApp, people will buy a house and a car and everything is managed by WhatsApp. So the expectation of the people utilizing your services or communicating with you is that I should be able to use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And it should be super convenient for me. I should just be able to send a message and something magical happen and my booking is made, or whatever it is I'm trying to achieve over WhatsApp. But I know on the side of the organization, to actually manage WhatsApp is a bit of a challenge, because you have so many people using it in so many different ways, and they probably expect to just be, just send me a pin for the location where I'm going to within the city. That just happened like that. So what have you found now that you've been trialing, or you've been working with it for a few months? What have you learned so far?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and the research was showing, it was something like 43% of people prefer to do business with a business over WhatsApp in the Middle East. This is research from just 3 years ago, so it's definitely even ahead of its time back then, and now who knows what that percentage is. But it's an expected channel, there's no question, and most convenient. The pace of our lives is increasing, as we all know, every day. And so how easy is it for me to get information? How easy is it for me to almost effectively offload that question to somebody else and get the answer back in a speedy way. And is that answer truthful? And is that answer going to answer my question? Or is it a bit of waffle? Or is it going to put me to the next and the next and the next, and it's going to delay, and then I haven't felt great about that interaction, so maybe I don't want to go back. And these are the reasons why we are taking it slow. I'm not ashamed to say that we're behind. And I think that's helpful because we don't want to rush in, fools rush in, as they say, and we don't want to make mistakes that are costly mistakes from both reputation but individual time. I don't want to waste people's time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so convenient, I want to ensure that we are as fast as we can be with what they need. Back to your point before about the various kind of propositions, that is another reason it's challenging, because think of the knowledge or information that's required for any real estate project, just one real estate project, let alone multiple. Investors or prospects, those who are interested, there's a million questions just in that domain.
Mm-hmm.
Then think of it for a free zone as a business. There's a million questions, maybe more. Then think of it as for an event, or I'm attending an event. Maybe less so, but the expectation is still there to get an answer quickly. So where do we get the answers? Where do we get all the knowledge? Where do we make sure that that information is available and ready? And it's from the people who've designed and created these fantastic offerings and these value propositions. And they're busy doing their job. We need to go and make sure that we're getting that information from them, and that information is structured in a way, or able to be structured in a way that can answer. Back to WhatsApp, what are we doing? So we are trying to, in a pilot phase, a foundational phase, really just understand what people are expecting and what people are asking, and do some really basic training and some basic automation, and building as we go, structuring it as we go, changing it as we go, getting feedback, and really taking it iteratively to put our little podcast bingo card in front of us. There's probably one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we'll get to others. And learning. So our goal was to learn what is the best approach for, let's say, a city, and is the best approach one, WhatsApp? Is the best approach multiple? Is the best approach to only focus on simple queries? Is the best approach to use it as a broadcast channel only and not worry so much about engagement after a broadcast, or not worry about as a customer support channel? Of course, we have to do what the audiences want. We can't dictate it.
Mm-hmm.
So this phase has been very interesting for us to learn those different areas. Think about how we need to organize ourselves. Think about where we need to invest, and think about how best structure we can establish. That includes AI. That includes knowledge. That includes a way to ensure that the people who need the information match with the people who have the information in the fastest way.
Mm-hmm. I think what about learning about WhatsApp. I mean, when I've seen how different organizations have leveraged WhatsApp in the region, I think there is a risk of people jumping to some product that can do WhatsApp, and they go, good, we'll buy that. And then you haven't actually achieved anything by buying some functionality. Because quite often, if you go on any website, it might be like, oh, WhatsApp with us here, and you click it. Sometimes it's just a chat with someone on WhatsApp, and it's just a person managing that on their phone or in their browser.
Right.
So has the organization really gained anything by that interaction? I haven't. I get access to someone that can maybe answer some of my questions. That's one thing that some people do. For some, it takes me to some contact forum where they will call me back.
Yeah.
So I didn't really achieve anything by that interaction. I just gave some information to someone. I didn't get much. To the automated bots that can be frustrating if they follow a very set tree and you can't break out of that because you can only follow step A, B, C. And if you said B, then you can only get B1 and B2 and you can't make it back up, or it's hard to be transferred to a human or to get the whole experience together. So I think you're probably the right approach, I think, is to have kind of almost see WhatsApp as just like an open standard as a channel, and then you slowly see what works and what's effective.
The tree, if anyone is to use our WhatsApp today, is exactly what you'll experience. And what we are doing with that is learning what people are requesting outside of the tree. And that's where we are finding opportunity and shaping how we structure information and how we might respond to them. What we're able to look at doing is within individual branches of the tree is to train a small AI assistant, a very focused business context. Let's say it's specifically around venue bookings. We have many venues that are, you can imagine the spaces that are available, if they're not being consumed or designed for residential purposes or commercial purposes, they can be used for meetings, events, and also there's many other external sort of outside spaces. So could we train a specific part of that branch and almost supercharge it? Yes, and that's what we're trying. So that's what we're going to be doing. Learn there, and then see if we can need to scale that or can scale that in other ways. And look, I think most organizations are sort of grappling with the same, how do we either open up the floodgates and all information, all knowledge is able to be consumed. That's not exactly going to help anyone. It already exists. You can go and do that with your ChatGPTs, etc. So equally, if it's too small, then our answer is going to be true and correct. If it's a little bit of external sources, internal sources, if it's to what degree. And so this is the learning that we are undertaking at this point. And equally is the behaviors. And where are we capturing those behaviors? What are we looking for that we can use to help that person beyond that experience, beyond that engagement? And how are we structuring and storing that information securely, safely as well? Consent and privacy, while it's not exactly strongly legislated here, and it will be, and I look forward to when it is, there'll be more adherence then, hopefully. It's still such a valuable and important part of every decision that is made. But the integration or integrations that are required also need to be tested and checked and make sure that we're structuring in a way that can be scalable too. So I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way, because there is only the way that we are adopting, we are taking. But certainly it does feel like we are working at a pace that might feel like slower to the end user, and that's frustrating, and I apologize for that. But at the same time, I think it's important that we do something that creates something good for people and good for the business as well.
That makes sense, and I think with WhatsApp as well, because if you plug in AI and agentic AIs and those types of agents that can manage WhatsApp for you, I think that's part of the solution, or a solution that can be leveraged. But I think also if we can kind of hand it over to a human at the right time for the right types of questions, then you get that mix of, it feels almost, I don't know if organic is the right word, but it feels more natural to go, oh, sorry, I'll just connect someone. And then all of a sudden someone will come on and go, hi, I saw you, how can I help you? And that can be, like you say, more targeted agents that have a very specific skill set, that they can probably be as effective maybe, and probably in a few years' time we won't be able to know the difference if it's a person or a robot doing it. But I think the same thing there. I think it's to have this slow, measured and measurable approach. I think at least you can't really go wrong. You can, like you say, maybe you're going too slow for some people's tastes, but if you make the right choices more often than not, then I think it's probably a good way to do it. We've when we work with WhatsApp with many of our other customers, it is a challenge sometimes what they want to achieve with WhatsApp, and it's more like often I feel like instead of the slow measured approach, it's a bit rushed. And then that's probably is by definition a more risky approach.
Right.
But if time to market is your only driver, then what's the value? If
Right.
you say, we have a WhatsApp channel now.
Yeah.
Okay, what have you actually, offered? What can
Yeah.
I get now?
Yeah.
Good, you have a WhatsApp now, Expo City, great. Oh yeah, it doesn't really have this content that you're after. Okay, then what will happen now? Like, so it's like, the WhatsApp is it's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a double-edged sword sometimes, but it's such a strong channel here for all of it, and it can do a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it probably is seen as a box to tick, like an app was a box to tick. An Apple Watch app was a companion app was a box to tick. A website is a box to tick, etc. So it can't, like, nothing should be seen as a box ticking exercise. It does need to be analyzed, of course. And I think, again, the answers are always in the behaviors. The answers are always in where people are and what they are thinking and what they are needing. And so the challenge is, how do you get into that space and understand? And the research needs to be done there, and the listening needs to be done there. It doesn't need to be, extremely robust all the time. It needs to be constant listening. And we find that we get a lot from just asking simple questions, small questions, almost unstructured research, just to keep things moving. Of course, there's a place for more strategic research as well. But listening is super important. And yeah, look, the ability to create more robust digitized services via WhatsApp is there, and the desire from the business side is always there, because it improves efficiency, productivity, lowers costs, all the great, I'm using my bingo square here, tick, tick, tick. But just what are the digital services or digitized services that will create value for the end user? What will save them time? What will help them accomplish their task better than the alternative? That's the really exciting space where I look forward to getting into.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, the way people or organizations leverage WhatsApp is a bit like, some people think they should have a chatbot on the website.
Right.
And I say, oh, great, you have a chatbot. Oh, and then, you can hand it over to, a call center. Do you have a call center? How many people, how will you manage this volume that could flow, from these channels? And I think it's like, it's important, I think, like it sounds like you are doing, almost taking a step back and almost start as a whiteboard exercise. Like, what are we trying to achieve here? And if you can't draw that out, you probably need to, think it over some more, or get some other inputs on it and how to do it. But that's really interesting, and I wanted to ask you about it because I know you started with it maybe 6 months ago, the WhatsApp initiative or something like that.
It was in March. We started the pilot.
Okay, maybe you've been talking about it longer than that.
Sure.
I just remember hearing about it. Yeah. Okay. No, it's interesting. What was I going to ask you? So that's WhatsApp's interesting, and then AI we touched on a little bit, and I guess we have to talk about AI every time we talk about technology. Tick that box too. But I'm in conversation with another large organization about AI, and they asked our help. How should we approach it? What should we do? And the approach I'm trying to get them to do with us is, let's create more of a pre-study approach where let's take stakeholders from different parts of your business, sit them down, almost educate them to a point about AI, what it can do, what the typical good use case could be for them, and get each part of the organization to understand what AI can do for them. Because I think it can be a risk now that you might be able to get a budget if you say you have an AI project, but if you don't, the same question as with WhatsApp, if you don't really have a plan for it, how do you approach it? So I'm hoping to sit down with them, and I think, and I said to this customer as well, look, I'm not going to tell you I know all the answers here.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the short amount of time that the current AI technology has been around, none of us have used it for longer than, 6 months, 3 months. It depends on how short you want to look back. So I said, let's just sit down together. We'll use all our brains and skill sets that we have and try to figure out what the best way is to navigate this with some sort of slow, measured approach. Because I think with AI, it can be tempting to go, oh, this can be automated, AI, but it maybe can just be automated without it doesn't need to be very intelligently done. Maybe it can just be these repetitive tasks, maybe we can manage them in some other way. So how have you,
Really
are you involved in any AI discussions at Expo at the moment? I know you are talking about it, but how do you see that?
Yeah, there's so many discussions. Just to pick up on one point you were making there, the approach you were talking about, which I really like, I respect it because, and look, I'm like you, we are all exploring and experimenting, and I'm fine with that. I think you can almost say that AI is automation, automation is AI. You touched on a really good point there, that if you can take space, make space for the team and yourself or anyone to look at the way you are operating and to look at the overarching business objective, the vision even, and starting up at that level, go, if what we're doing is connected to the vision, good. Could we make it better? First question. Do we all agree we can? Yes, we all agree we can make it better. Okay, so now let's look at the individual things that we are doing that contribute to making the thing that we're doing, that we're delivering, the value for the business. Processes, let's say, and looking at those processes. Now, this is not like, this is Six Sigma kind of work as well. It brings in all of those skills to look at processes and how you can improve and optimize and enhance business processes. But sometimes teams just don't have the space. So first you make the space, then you're going and breaking it down. This is one task. Let's just take one task. An example being like, we need to, by the end of the week, have shipped one widget. What's the process to create a widget? What's the process to get that widget to where it needs to be at the end of the week? And just break that down, and whiteboarding exercise, kind of working backwards from that thing. And you can almost decide together which area is most sort of painful or frustrating or consumes so much time or so many people. Let's just sort of grab that slice and have a look at it. And there's a starting point for you, because it's connected to the vision, it's connected to what you do, it's connected to one of the things you need to deliver every month, every week. And so you've covered all of that. Now it's like, well, let's figure out, is there something where AI could improve, change, address, optimize time or collaboration or insight before that thing gets created? So it feels very cumbersome because you're getting right into the detail, but all you need to do is change that one thing and you could have changed the whole process of delivering that widget, maybe reduce time to get that widget to where it needs to be at the end of the week. So there's that approach concept. And the question there is like, well, what platforms and what technology and so on and so forth. But at least you're looking at it more as though this thing will achieve something rather than exploring with an open book and not really sure where it's going to go and maybe getting distracted and wasting time and so on and so forth. So there's that part. And we as a team, first and foremost, look at workflows and look at our own processes and where, with that model, can we kind of make it a bit better. And there's not a day that goes by where we aren't saying, well, we could just sort of save that time. Let's say it's translations, content translations. This is a simple one. Can we get the content from the person who has the content, the information, who's trying to promote, push, whatever it is, to us and back to the end user through the right channel at the right time, faster? Let's do that. Let's test how long it takes. Let's use the stack that we've got. Let's see if we can translate that in real time based on our tone of voice, our Arabic guidelines in the case of Arabic. And we're even testing those things. So we are looking at different alternatives. Thankfully, we've got some various teams that are looking at different alternatives to compare, but just using sort of ChatGPT and building out our own GPT for translations, Arabic translations, to train it on all of our Arabic content, and with our Arabic editor in place, looking at things as a final human touch, we were able to sort of speed things up. So that's an example of just the smallest thing that a team could potentially do. The difference with us is that we're doing it voluntarily ourselves. some departments won't think that way or have the appreciation or understanding or just not there to be able to do it themselves. So we need to try and encourage them to do it too. So we need to show and tell. We need to demonstrate. We need to maybe get them on the same systems, maybe copy paste the type of workflow within their system so that it can be easily adopted by them. So that's the kind of practical stuff we're doing, and then the broader conversations. And then I wanted to share this because it was so interesting. A colleague said it's like, so if you think of AI not as one thing, but as like an interdependent system with component parts. And he's like, it's almost like a Formula One performance team. And I was just drawn in. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I reckon he got this from ChatGPT, but anyway, it was great. Anyway, he says, and I'll probably butcher this, but let me try. He goes, so the data is the fuel. You've got the algorithm, which is the engine in the Formula One racing car. You've got your sort of compute power, which is the construct of the vehicle itself. You've got your machine learning models, which is like basically the driver driving the vehicle, processing, finding pathways. You've got the APIs and integrations being like the pit crew and the communications between everything. And then you've got the human observers, right? Like the racing strategists or whatever. That was it, I think 6. And he's like, if we invest in the data, cool, but we don't invest in the engine or we don't invest in the pit crew or something, we're just not going to get the results, And it just really highlighted to me and made it simple, but highlighted to me just where are we focused? What are we looking at? And helped me at least break it down and to now start thinking, well, we are definitely focused on the data, of which our city and visitors are continuously generating a lot, as we all know. What and how can we best capitalize on it? And it's almost too much. So how do you just, again, break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces to really focus and utilize? And the APIs and integration piece as well, like the communications between systems, you're helping a lot with that. But most importantly, what struck me was the human overview, that kind of the racing strategy team that's sort of sitting around it all. From a governance point of view, from a culture point of view, how are we encouraging the culture of exploring these things? How are we talking about it between each other? And what kind of culture should we create going into this future that is a very uncertain time and uncertain future towards the master plan and beyond as well. So yeah, it was a fantastic example and really helped me think through things, and I hope others sort of are able to use it and think through that in the same way.
Yeah, I think what often I see as well when you try to look at applying AI to certain business challenges that companies have, organizations have, is that it kind of highlights what part of that Formula One car you don't have, or that's broken, or that doesn't work. So it can often become, maybe it's an infrastructure problem that I can't get this piece of information quickly enough so that I can service it here, right. Or I'm not able to measure how well this worked or that didn't work. So I think because some people might think, oh, we'll just let AI do it, and think that it's going to be some magical thing that will just figure everything out for you. And often what I find with AI kind of becoming part of most conversations now is that it's a good thing to be old enough to have worked with infrastructure and old school IT almost. It feels like a step back almost towards that, where you need to have a broader understanding. It's not just a cloud thing where you click somewhere and something happened. Right. That might be for the end consumer or end customer, but for the people working with the technology, we need to understand, okay, so where are we going to store the data?
Yeah.
How's the data going to make it from point A to point B?
Yeah.
How will you reference it, and how can you, and these skill sets were kind of at risk of being lost almost because everything was just easy. So I think with AI, we find now what we have to look at when we hire consultants now, we need a bit of a different flavor now in what we do as well. We need someone who can, maybe we don't need data scientists because we're not an AI focused company, but we need someone near enough that can at least speak to data scientists or understand how to engineer and host and store data and make it available. And so it's kind of it feels like almost like the old supercomputer days where, oh, here's this big thing, now you get access to it to use it for your kind of computations. You bring the result back, and then so it's really interesting. And I think I've been playing around with some of these kind of consumer, well, I guess they're not really consumer grade, but some of these tools where you can build your own flow. So I built an app the other day.
Like no code, low code.
Just by natural language. I heard someone call it vibe coding, which is funny.
Right, vibe.
So I just, in natural language said, I want an app to track, I wanted to track calories based on what I send it on a Telegram message, and then put that into a Google sheet and give me all the carbs, fat, protein, all the content based on, whatever I put in.
Yep.
And the thing kind of was spinning for 4 or 5 minutes. And then it's you need to just log into a few things, but I'll show you how to log in. So I just did everything. I think it took me about half an hour all in all.
Yeah.
And then I, on Telegram with my voice or with text, just said 1 banana.
Yeah.
And then I can see the flow running, and I could check my Google sheet and went ding, banana typically has this much, content, blah, blah. And I was like, what? So on that level, it's easy. But then when you want to scale that to an organization, obviously it's not the same thing. We can't just say, build this thing, with natural language as easily, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think the good thing is that because that's the way you instruct agents and AI components now, it is with language that you are an agent, this is your job, you're doing X, Y, Z, these are the topics you're going to work on. It means people who don't have a very deep technical skill set and maybe can't write code and do that, they can still contribute to making AI better. So you get more people in, I think, which is why I like it. Like you can get people in. I can ask someone who's not technical at all, what would you like it to do? Well, I would do that. Yeah, okay, we're programming it now, but we don't have to know all our brackets and curly, parentheses to do it. So it's really exciting, but and it kind of is similar to WhatsApp, where this is cool and easy, but to manage it as an organization and to make it valuable is quite different.
Yeah, I mean it's the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. What's underneath the water is always a big question, and a lot more than people probably assume. But I think people go try something new or see someone next to them try that thing and go, can I try that thing? And they try that thing if they're willing. And then suddenly they're realizing, oh, so data in, data out. Oh, so if I just think about it like I need to accomplish this task, and then I ask the thing in natural language to accomplish this task, or at least to construct something that will help me, oh, that's just saved me a lot of time. So I think the everyone learns differently, of course, but I think there's a lot faster onboarding into understanding these component parts of the race car, let's say, than there has ever been, because the entry of it is chat.
Yeah.
Like the entry of it is natural language. So you are just starting to ask something, a machine, something, and it's giving you such incredible responses and results and educating you, breaking it down into steps, and you're trying it yourself, and you're seeing an outcome and a result. So yeah, it's enabling people more than we probably think. And if we look at sort of just even the UAE, we take a bigger look now, and we see the news about ChatGPT Plus being, I think it's Plus, I want to say it is, being potentially rolled out to all citizens. I mean, talk about enabling citizens. That's going to take us a long way. And then just today or yesterday, I saw that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, he says they're introducing an AI into the cabinet, an AI advisor into the cabinet for the first time in 2026 or something like that. So here we go. I mean, where will this go? Nobody knows, but let's enjoy the ride. Hopefully everyone else will. That's well.
That's right. So just as kind of closing or to finish up, but what's next for you and for what you do at Expo? What are you trying to achieve this year? Do you have any particular goal that you're trying to do now? Like what's on your desk at the moment, so to speak? What are you like working on?
Yeah, well, obviously there's the WhatsApp piece and the iceberg underneath it.
Yeah.
And there's the feel of the car, the data, the APIs, and then the human oversight. And look, we're using Airtable at the moment for a lot of this. This is this enrichment layer that's sitting in between. You've heard me talk about it. I'm sure people around me are sick of me talking about it and showing them everything. But as they adopt, they start to realize, hey, there isn't really a business problem that I couldn't at least use Airtable to help me solve in some way. And I'm not spruiking Airtable here at all, although it sounds like I am. That has been really interesting because what it's doing is it's showing that ease of use for complex things like managing or thinking about data and managing and thinking about AI and assistance and so on and so forth can actually be adopted really easily by people who may not have all the knowledge or understanding. And so what could that do? Again, like the UAE enabling people, I feel like we could enable a lot more and share between departments a lot more and in a lot faster way the information that is being stored in these bases. So that's a really exciting project for us. Hopefully we'll pursue and continue that path. It's definitely showing there's a lot of value and showing a lot of shoots from the seeds that we sowed earlier this year. Those two things are really, really valuable to us. But it's then a question of, next year we have residents. Next year people will start moving in. We'll start handing over keys.
Yeah.
And to your point before, what's it going to be as people start to fill the city? That's exciting. Like we are all looking out our windows every day, imagining that. And that's it's a nice place to be. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you, as a guest. And yeah, maybe we'll do another episode in 6 months and see what we've learned and what we thought now that was wrong and what was right.
Yeah, let's do that. I'd love to. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
See you.